people like to discount agnosticism based on societal interpretation of common sense. Like the flying spaghetti monster, there is no proof of the flying spaghetti monster, so therefore we must remain atheistic about the flying spaghetti monster. I believe that a belief in something permeates it. I also believe that consciousness did not permeate from the physical world, rather, the physical world emerged from consciousness. That is something that I cannot prove. It is merely a belief that I hold. I believe that there is an intelligence circulating throughout the universe, keeping things in order, natural law. And that is what we have come from, what have you. If you look at the universe on a large enough scale, it looks like what you'd see under a microscope if you were to examine bacteria. There's this circulating, somewhat seemingly random pattern of organized organic matter or data. And you could say, sure, it's all random, it doesn't serve any purpose. But then, if you look at it under a microscope, you could tell that it serves a purpose because it supports all of the activity that we take upon ourselves on a daily basis, and also all the other sentient and non-sentient beings on this planet. They're all composed of bacteria, carbon. So I believe that proclaiming that atheism is the only rational route to take is kind of missing the point. Atheism is a response to theism. I'm not saying that everybody has to be a theist. That is just as ridiculous as saying that persuading people against agnosticism towards atheism is useless. However, I do believe that if one is to proclaim that agnosticism is a false route to take because there are certain things out there that people will proclaim as true that seem sensically to not be true, that we must dismiss them as not true. I believe that the burden of proof lies on both sides. That which tries to make due proof of this thing being true, and that those who choose to disprove such a thing. And I believe the compromise is agnosticism. I think that we try too hard in our society to prove things to each other. I know this. Knowledge is power. I believe that having a strong grip on the world that you live in is important, but I'm a subjective idealist. I believe that my reality is much different than your reality, is much different than his reality, is much different than her reality, is much different than their reality. I don't have proof of this. I don't have proof that there is an objective material world out there that we all coexist and play in. But my belief is that so many things happen in my life. My experience is that so many things happen in my life that can't be accounted for by random chance. I believe, and I'll fully admit this, that my interpretation of such things happening in my life is that things come into my life when they need to come into my life in order to persuade me to do certain things. It is my responsibility, with free agency, free avenue, free choice, to make the right decisions in my life. But we can't be expected to just dismiss everything as false. In fact, religion gives millions and billions of people, not millions of billions, billions of people something to look forward to, something to live for. I believe that science is not the exploration and proof of the lack of existence of a God. In my opinion, I believe that science is the exploration of God, because I believe that God is everything. Now, if you want to be atheistic towards an Abrahamic God, then you're talking about a completely different thing than dismissing God completely as a principle or as an idea. I believe that God is me and you and everything. Everything. God is here right now. God is in the internet. God is outside of the internet. God is in earth. God is earth. God is outside of earth. God is all. And I believe that if you take it back on a long enough scale, we were all compounded in whatever it was. Like, I do believe in the Big Bang. But I believe in a pre-existence of the Big Bang as well. And so all of us existed in this clusterfuck that is the Big Bang. And outside of that was this circulating intelligence that was God. And then God kind of compounded in on this material, whatever it is, I don't know. I'm agnostic about it. And it just exploded. And then, so God exploded. It was God's way of growing. And then we all grew to be here and be discussing the matter, because it's important to discuss, because it's important to understand our purpose in the universe. And I believe that all of this conflict, I agree with you, Mickey, I agree. I think that the conflict is the problem. I think that we should be accepting of each other's beliefs, not dismissive, not in warring faction with each other's beliefs. That is the problem. The problem is not a belief in a moral code. The problem is not a belief in a creator. The problem is not a belief in anything other than absolute good and evil. Because once we assume knowledge of absolute good and evil, then that leads us into conflict with each other. And since we believe it is absolute, that means that absolute evil must be stopped by any means necessary. And that is something that I think needs to be amended. The Dalai Lama says something very great. Back in the, I believe, 1970s, he said, there are 6 billion people on the planet. Therefore, there must be 6 billion different religions. Therefore, I urge you to reconsider this forceful atheistic tone, because persuading people to not believe in a higher intelligence creates a fundamental loss of purpose to some people, and conflict within people that choose to believe in said organized religions or unorganized beliefs, spirituality. And I understand that spirituality is an individualistic thing, and there doesn't need to be a belief of God within that. However, the burden of proof does lie on the atheists that proclaim that there is not a God. Now, people don't have to believe in God, but they also should not be forced to have to decide whether or not they believe. And that is an issue, because once all of this pressure is applied to people that are on the fence on the issue, then it becomes a situation where people make the wrong decision for themselves because they're persuaded by the wrong elements in that time. So people just need to lay off people and be cool and just allow people to come to conclusions or never come to conclusions based on their own accord. Atheism is fine by me, as Christianity is fine by me. I just don't see, for myself, much good in discounting the possibility of God's existence, because Christianity offers so much hope, so much charity, so much greatness to so many people. And I understand that Christianity also provides people with a lot of inner conflict as well. So that's why I'm hesitant to call myself a Christian. I am a Christian in that I believe in Christ's teachings, the Sermon on the Mount in particular, turn the other cheek. But I'm also Buddhist. I also believe that materialism draws us away from the spiritual world or our spiritual center, and so we must, omit those things and avoid getting too indulgent. I'm also Hindu in that I believe that the universe is eternal, that there is no beginning point, and that there will be no end point to the universe, and that it's all just circulating intelligence. I believe in all different sorts of beliefs. I believe in reincarnation. I believe that there is an afterworld plane. Call it whatever you want to call it. Label it whatever you want to label it. But I believe that the spirit does transcend the body. It also evolves and continues morphing and changing at its own momentum. So anyhow, I just want to, by making this conflicting video with your set of beliefs, want to bring forward a compromise among the people, because I believe that the most important thing that we can do as a people to avoid or stop conflict is to compromise with each other. And this, you have all of these theists over here that are fighting, black, white, shades of gray, red, blue, and in between. And then over here you have atheists who are criticizing the theists and going, it is your theism that is creating the war and the suffering and the pain. But really, it's the human factor that is creating all of that. And it exists outside of the human factor too, but it is our nature to blame each other for our own discomfort. And so we need to just learn to be comfortable with ourselves. And only then will we find inner peace. And only when we find inner peace will we, as a collective, ever discover outer peace. Because the reason for the wars is much more about starving and much more about limitation and suppression than it ever was about theism. Theism is the mask, and if you look into Lord of the Flies, it's like those kids need to wear masks in order to kill the pig. They need to wear masks in order to kill, I believe, Simon and Piggy. Kill Piggy. It's the mask that we wear. And so if atheists are proclaiming that saying that atheism is the removal of that mask, then that's fine. But I believe that it is just another mask. And that is what I believe. Thank you.